Yeah. Welcome, y'all. Welcome, y'all. Episode 4, we made it. We made it past episode 3. Hey, before we get into it, hey, greatly appreciate everybody who showed love for episode 3. Definitely wasn't the easiest conversation to have, as you know, anybody would probably have that same issue with having that kind of conversation. But I really appreciate it, man. We want to keep pushing this thing forward. Keep the comments coming. I'll definitely will reply to every single thing that I can. Good stuff, bad stuff. Hey, don't matter to me. You know, we just here to have a good time and be humble and be open about conversation. So let's get into it, right? Song of the day, FATBOY DUBZ, Up Freestyle. Quick little tidbit about him. Guy out of Wilmington, Delaware. Grew up with him. Definitely a solid guy, good character. You know, just kind of living the best life that he can, and definitely has faced some hardships throughout his life. Some that I was there for, and I know some things I've been in Texas for and I missed, but definitely always been a good guy, solid guy again, and he's been doing this music thing for a long time. So I'm going to link the video down below, and if you want to check it out, by all means. If you don't, then by all means, you know, appreciate you either way for showing up, right? So we in. Let's get to it. So quick update for people who've been paying attention. I'm sure if you watch TV on some level, you've been aware of the Damar Hamlin situation. Damar Hamlin finally made it home. So, right, congrats to him. Definitely praying that everything health-wise stays on the up and up. He doesn't have any underlying issues, and that he's able to kind of rejoin his family and kind of get back to his regular life. Right now, my comment is not relating to football. I can give a hell about football at this moment. Seeing his situation, and I guess just a quick play-by-play for people who don't know what I'm talking about. Damar Hamlin is a football player for the Buffalo Bills who was playing a game against the Cincinnati Bengals. He made a routine tackle, stood up. Maybe 2 seconds later, you see him kind of do a wobble back and forth and then completely collapse on the field. When he collapsed on the field, his heart stopped completely. A trainer came out, gave him CPR, brought his heart back. They rushed him to the hospital, and that's where he stayed for the next 7 days. He was on ventilators and life support for the first few, and then finally started showing signs of being able to hold it together on his own, and they slowly took him off, and he's been breathing, talking, FaceTiming, and he's been seemingly himself since his body's kind of rewoke itself back up. So again, we want everybody, you know, to be healthy. We want everybody to be in a good space. So hopefully everything going forward for him is great. They canceled the game. They almost didn't cancel the game, which was very slick on the NFL's behalf, because when you have a guy seemingly die on the field and then come back to life, the thought of you still playing the game seems to be a very minuscule thing, right? Most people would believe that like that game will be over, and they almost decided that they were going to play. I commend the players and the brotherhood that the NFL seems to have in certain situations, at least in that situation, that they stuck together and they decided that they didn't want to play, and they didn't play. But I bring all that up to get into the actual business part of football, which is some of what I had prior, you know, talked about in the last video. Mr. Hamlin, who seemingly, as I said, seems to be in a very good space right now. We don't know what his future physical standing is going to be as he gets older, or just now what his quality of life may be. Just because he's talking and everything like that doesn't mean that he's not going to be susceptible to any other issues later. We just know currently, right now, we'll take what we have, and right now he's up and he's moving around. But Mr. Hamlin played at Pittsburgh. He's very, very new to the league. He's not making a shit ton of money. Excuse my French. He's not making a lot of money. And because of that, him playing football is the thing that's making him the money. Him not playing football again is a big deal. For somebody like him who's probably played football his entire life, to get to this point, and the possibility of him not playing football, either from a physical standpoint, not being able to, or from these teams not wanting to take the chance. Now, Don't get me wrong, there are physicals that these guys have to take. There are doctor's visits, and there are little caveats to those things that if you have pre-existing conditions that have to get checked off the list before you get brought back to a team. But to have something that scary happen to you, to be in a situation like that, that's never happened before, it's kind of a very shaky thing. And a lot of people that I was talking to were asking the question of, do we think that he's going to actually play again? I actually believe that he's going to play again. I believe this. I don't know how they're going to make that work. Maybe work him in slowly or whatever. But I just think that because of the business of football, who seemingly, I can't prove it, but just through the things that we've seen throughout the years, don't really care much about these guys, from the contracts to the insurance to, those things like that, to what we're actually seeing as far as a guy have that situation and you guys still play through it and things like that. I understand the business. There's sponsors. I get guys got to get paid. I understand. But there's certain things that should be bigger than football. I think he's going to play. I think that he is going to play. Do I think he should play? I don't know. I don't know if I'm in that situation, if I would be able to not play. If I had a chance. If my entire life is predicated on me getting on this field, I don't know if that situation, opposite of me being able to take care of my entire family or not, is going to keep me off the field. I think I'm playing. I really do. I really do think I'm playing. I think you'd have to sign paperwork to keep me off the field if I physically feel like I'm able to get out there and be my best self. It's just the fact that there's going to always be this little, there's always going to be a wince or kind of a side eye when you go make a tackle or you do something super physical in hopes that something doesn't happen again. And then you're in the same situation, because if it happens again and he gets on that field, there's going to be hell to pay for the team that decided that they were going to take that risk. So again, it's the business of football. The other part of the business of football is this. There's 53 guys on a roster. Those 53 guys, I don't believe any of those guys, well, rarely do you ever see those guys get guaranteed money. These guys go out here, and I get they don't play, 30, 40, 60, 80 games, 100 and some games like some other sports, but they do get out here and they play the most physical sport that we have. And those owners of those teams make a whole lot of money. There is an agreement, collectively bargained, for the way that these contracts are set up, the way that all this stuff is handled. And I'm not putting it per se on the owners per se, and I'm not putting it on the NFL completely, because like I said, there's a collective bargaining agreement that is had between players and they're had between representatives and coaches. And so those things are agreed upon. I just think that it's wild to me that I can go hit a baseball and get guaranteed money, $400 million guaranteed, which is some of these guys are getting. And I go play football where I literally have to risk dying through contact, and my salary is like $3 million. I'm not saying that it has to be $400 million to play football, but I do think that a lot of those contracts should be guaranteed. At least a starter's contract should be fully guaranteed. If you start, I believe that you shouldn't have to worry about anything, because every time you walk out on the field, you have a 90% chance probably of getting injured, because these guys aren't the smallest guys. These guys get paid to do this full time. In the off season, this is what they're working on. And during the season, they're only working to get better at it. You have access to the best trainers, the best nutritionists, the best everything. It's not, these guys aren't, 5'2" out here running around, with pillows on. These guys are big guys. Some of these linemen are running 4'4", 4'5". That guy, 290 pounds, that runs a 4'5", 4'6", hits you full speed, you probably gonna go to sleep. And Joe Blow, that's walking around, that just walks his dog on the weekends and goes and plays basketball with his friends, but he's tall, is gonna go to sleep if a guy that big hits him. But that's just my opinion. There are people that I have talked to who have that same sentiment that I have. They believe that, it's really weird that, and I get what the argument is on the other side. The argument on the other side is there's 53 guys on a team. A lot of these teams, these other teams of the sports, don't have that many players. I understand that. That I do understand, but that's why I said, the starters, at least the starters. Because damn, like, your career can be over literally in one tackle. Literally. If not your career, your life can be over in one tackle, one hit. Doing everything you're supposed to do, everything that you're trained to do for years, probably since you've been a kid, and in one hit, it's over with. The other part of that too is like the health insurance. The NFL does have health insurance. It really does. It has health insurance. But if I recall, after 5 years of you retiring, that insurance expires. So my question is this. If, as I said before, a lot of these guys, they play football from a very young age. If you've been playing football from, let's say you've been playing football, tackle football from 8 years old. Let's say you're 8 years old. You start playing tackle football. All you ever do is play football. That's it. You do nothing else. You play football. Like, I'm a football player. That's what I do, right? That's my conversation when people bump into me. If I'm one of those guys, I make it through high school, to college, to the pros, right? Literally, by the time you get to the pros, you've probably played 10 years of football. Who knows what type of ailments, surgeries, hairline fractures you have, what is going on inside your body, really? Who knows really what's going on? You get to the pros, the big leagues, this is where you wanted to be. This is, you have posters on the wall growing up. This is what you wanted, and you make it. And your body falls apart on you. You see it all the time. There's guys that make it through college, they get to the pros, and their body falls apart. What company, after 5 years of you retiring, is going to want to insure a guy that's literally been in car wrecks for 10 years, 15 years? Because it's almost what it is. Two grown men running full speed. It's pretty much a car crash. What company is going to want to do that? So these guys don't actually have the infrastructure going forward to continue to be healthy. And then what you see later is, hey, well, this guy was on these pills, or this guy was on this. Well, why was he on that? Because he had to find his own insurance, and nobody would cover him because his body was in pieces. It's almost a suicide mission for the company to take on a guy that's played 80% of the snaps in the NFL for 5, 10 years, 15 years. These guys that are playing until 38, 39, 40 years old, they've been playing since they were 21, probably. That's 20 years in the league, at least, not counting all the years before that. So how are you, if you don't expect the body to hold up, but yet you want these guys to go and figure it out on their own? The NFL is $1 billion company. I'm sure there's something that they can do. But again, it's the business of football. They wing you off, and then they just cut you. They go, hey, you know what? Listen, this is what it is. Your 5 years is up. You got to figure it out on your own now. All right, bye. When these guys have been dependent on this thing for 20 years. And I'm not saying it's all the NFL's fault. As I said, some of the players and the Players Association have to figure this out, have to figure out a way to make these things work. Because some of these NFL players who are the Tom Brady's, the Aaron Rodgers, some of these guys that have played till literally like almost the end of their career with very minimal injury or whatever the case may be, they may be okay. Those guys maybe for the most part are going to be fine. But it's the Hamlins. It's those guys that are youngsters in their 20s that haven't eclipsed the amount of money that these other guys have to be able to go, you know what? My body's falling apart. I'm making 40 million this year. I can go put away, 10, 5 and for the next 4 or 5 years, invest in some good things. And then I can kind of ride off into the sunset and let that money make money, and I'll be okay. Some of these guys like this, I mean, luckily, from what the reports are, the Bills have got with ownership and they've gotten with the NFL, and they've agreed to pay Mr. Hamlin his entire salary for this year, which I have to commend that. That's a start. I have to commend that. Guy gets hurt like that where he's probably not coming back. What's $3 million to the $1 billion that you make a year? Billions with an S. it doesn't equate. Just write the man a check and just pray for him, and hopefully everything works well. But like I said before, football is a business, and it's very lucrative for the people who aren't playing. It's lucrative from our standpoint looking in, for the players as well. But there's so much more to it that a lot of people don't understand. They don't understand how the taxes work. They don't understand all these things. They don't get that. And I get that too, right? Like, you have to understand, like, there's stuff that's underwritten all through the paperwork. So with that 40 million player ain't really making 40 million. He probably ain't even making 30 million. He's probably making 20 to 25 million, which is still, I mean, like I said, to us, if they gave me 500,000 to go play ball right now, hey, I got to go. I don't know what's going on. I'm cutting this camera off and I'm about to go work out. It is what it is. But it's all relative to the situation. It's all relative to the situation, especially when you've gone into this thing with the hopes of and the dreams of being able to do this thing long term. You've set up your life a certain way. Now you had this injury, and now where do you go from here? Your entire life that just went up now goes back down, and you have to figure out a way. And now you have to fight through the business and understand the business to figure out where you fit in that business. Because the NFL, like most corporations, is a business. It's entertainment, but it's the business of entertainment. The business of entertainment is what it is. So prayers up to him. Hope everybody, is doing good on his side. I hope that he's recovering and everything about his situation is a foregone conclusion to the fact that we are watching a guy literally have a second chance at life. And to me, that's all that's important. The football part is just secondary. And to be quite honest, I don't watch the Bills, but as a football guy, like, it's definitely a hard thing to watch a guy just lay there. When you see him fall, you understand, like, instantly there's something's different about this situation the moment you see him fall to the ground. So that was definitely hard to watch, but I'm definitely glad that he's all right. And hopefully, to be honest, I hope I want to see him back on the field, but I don't know if I'd be able to watch it with both eyes open. I might have to, like, kind of turn to the TV a little bit. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I've seen a lot of things on a football field. I've never seen that. So from there, we're going to go to something that I was reading up on probably just 2 days ago. And it's Seattle schools are suing the big media platforms, Facebook, TikTok, stuff like that, Snapchat, because they say that their business model, their algorithms, the way that they run their business, again, it's business, is affecting their students that are in school there. I believe that should be a national lawsuit. Personally, I definitely do. I believe that lawsuit should be picked up by everybody that has a lawyer to go to battle with those type of companies. And let's just see what happens. I'm sure there can be a class action where everybody can get a piece and they can figure out what they can do with these social media sites. Therefore, they're not as cumbersome on these youngsters as far as being able to take them and add to their depression and add to these things. There's some of these sites that I get on. And let me be clear, I'm not a social media person. For anybody who knows me, I'm not Mr. like, hey, I was on the internet and I saw you doing so and so. That's just not who I am. I don't really care about it that much. I'm definitely, I guess, new to the game based on what I'm doing now, but it's definitely not who I am, once this camera is cut off. But I have kids and I have a lot of friends that don't have kids, but they're on their phone all day as if they're kids. And so I do see that a lot of time is spent just looking down. I'm old enough to remember when you had to go to a store and buy your minutes for your phone. I'm old enough to remember not having minutes, or like, hey, the calls are free on weekends or nights and weekends. Hey, call you after 8 o'clock, bro. I got you. Like, I remember that. I remember when the internet wasn't what it is now, where these phones are like as fast as literally computers, and you can just hit buttons and you can see whatever. I remember when that wasn't the case. I remember when the internet was just plain. It was just a couple boxes. You could type in certain stuff, and that's all you'd get. And so to understand how technology has grown, I get it. To understand that there are people that are going to see that growth and find ways to kind of create their own niche in it, I understand that too. But I do understand that there should be balance. I do get that. And I do understand that it's not these tech companies' job to say, hey, we can't allow your kid to sit on here all day, or your friend or parent or whoever to sit on here all day. I do understand it's not their job, right? They have an office. They're just putting a product out, and whoever's consuming it is consuming it. I do understand that it's not on them per se. But some of the things that I've seen on these sites for kids, you know, Twitter in particular, like Twitter is one of these sites where like, yo, like you can literally like go watch X-rated videos on Twitter, which is crazy because you can't even say certain stuff on other platforms, but you can go watch videos on a different platform. So there isn't consistency as to what can and can't or isn't allowed to be shown to people as a whole, not even to kids or as adults, like just in general. Y'all are literally just allowing people to just go out here, figure out whatever it is that they want to watch, and then the algorithm will continue to show them that. I get that. I understand that. But why ask for age? Why ask for birthday? Why ask for these things when you sign up if you're not going to vet you know what I mean? You're not going to vet everything accordingly that's put on that screen or swiped across or whatever the case is. I don't understand that. I have a hard time getting that. I do get that there are some things that are, hey, like For You pages where like, hey, like these things pop up based on the algorithm of the things that you've looked at, the things that you've liked. I understand that. But I do understand too, like as the same time, like as a parent, like you kind of have a say so too in that. There are some apps where it allow you to forcefully log off, and it won't let you back on until the next day after a certain time. There are things that are in place for you to be able to control somewhat, at least a little bit more, what's happening on and off these phones. Or if I'm being quite honest, you can't just take the phone. Like my older two, I mean, they just love phones. Like, I don't know, I guess, you know, but they're old enough to kind of be able to kind of like let them rock out with that. You know, my youngest, he's kind of like, he's 10. So it's like, all right, he wants to do his thing, but I'm just not that guy. Hey, bro, I'd rather you get off that and go play some video games at least. You know, give that thing a break. Luckily, he's not super duper into it, where a lot of times his phone will die and he won't even worry about it for a couple of days. I love that because I'm like, I'm never in a rush to charge it unless we're going somewhere because he gets on my nerves by talking all the time or whatever. But whatever happened to just like being outside? I just think social media, I think these apps, I think these companies, I think these guys are doing a good job for the most part based on what they can control. A lot of times there are some things, like I said, but I also think, hey, sometimes you got to tell your kids to get the hell off the phone and go outside. I think a lot of these companies don't have the pull that you think they have. I just think that as parents, a lot of parents, not all, but a lot, are soft. I think they're like, hey, like, it's okay. My kid's not complaining or not whining, so let them just do whatever they want to do. No, man. Like, I remember being outside and I would just like, we would just be gone. Like, hey, go outside. All right. Hey, I'm tired of looking at you. Go find something to do. And those would be the greatest times because for better or worse, we have fun. Wasn't always doing the right stuff, but you're never going to learn to deal with the real world looking at a screen. Even if somebody is looking into this camera and saying, hey, this is how you blend with people. If there's a class for it, there's nothing like being in person and understanding what the world is through experience. There's nothing that's going to beat it. There is nothing that's going to beat it. And I think that the more that we allow these kids to sit on these phones, the more that these things are going to happen. the more that these companies or these schools and these people are going to say, hey, well, it's the company. You're right. It is the company. I'm not saying that it's not the company, but I do think that before you start suing companies, I do think that some of the onus does go to us as older people and as people, like I said, like myself, who's old enough to remember what the world was like before this boom of cell phones and media. It was definitely different. It's definitely different going outside. Man, look, some of these kids ain't been in an argument for real, if you really want to talk about it. They ain't never been in an argument. Y'all ain't went outside and fought your friend because y'all just outside wrestling around and whatever. Y'all ain't flipped on no mattresses, right? Right? Like you ain't lived until you find like some twin mattresses somewhere and y'all get to flipping. Like, it is what it is. Like, y'all ain't play stickball, kickball nowhere. Y'all ain't met some kids from across town. You know what I'm saying? And y'all got a little rivalry going. Y'all ain't did nothing. Like all y'all do is go, hey, so-and-so is over here from the internet. Pull up and sit there, and then y'all sit on y'all's phones together and talk about other people. What's the point? What is the point of that? What are you learning from that? Me personally, I'm just an active person by trade. So literally, I get screamed at to get on the internet. That's just, and even that don't work a lot of times. Not because I'm trying to be hard-headed, but because I don't care about the internet. It's just not my thing. I get off what I need it for, and I get off. There's times I'm outside. There's days where I'm outside, multiple days, and I don't see nobody outside. Nobody outside. Now, this is what I think is interesting. I do think that I run into situations where I see people lose love for things outside based on what they're doing on the internet. I see it all the time. I know how many guys have kids and they go, man, that kid had a lot of potential. And then every time they see him on the internet, or every time they see him, they're watching other people do what they should be doing. And I do understand that there is inspiration in that. I do get that there's a whole different perspective. And I understand it 100% because now being on social media is the easiest way to get recruited. It's the easiest way to get noticed. It's the easiest way to know what's going on as far as, sports or things like that. But I watch other people play video games. You don't even got the game yourself. You watching somebody else play the video game that you want, or you don't even want it. You just happen to like what the guy's talking about. And now you're just sitting there for hours watching him play a video game, instead of you being constructive and doing something else. I'm not saying that these guys are trying to, trick the minds of the kids. I'm not that conspiracy theorist. I'm not saying none of that. I'm not saying that they're trying to do this or do that to your kid. I'm not saying that. I just think that there is a level of discernment that should be had by these companies. And I do think that there is a level of discernment that should be had by these parents to make sure that everybody's doing their part. I do think that. And if not for nothing, you can always go into the phone and turn the app off and delete the app. Right? Like it's still a choice. It's still a choice on a certain level. Right? So at the end of the day, I'm not saying that these kids have to be outside or it's all one or the other. It's a little bit of everything. Everybody has to take a little bit of onus and understand, like, okay, this isn't this without this, and that isn't that without this. Because the sooner we figure that out, and the sooner we figure out what it is that we actually need to do on our side, it's a little different. Now, not to sway too far from what we're talking about, but I don't know if parents don't want their kids outside because they don't want to. They can't beat them because because then the kids cry wolf and then they go to jail. Miss me with that. If you go outside, I'm probably gonna be outside with you, and I just think being outside builds character. I do, and this is from somebody who's been homeless, been outside. Like, my best memories are outside. Believe it or not, that's just some of my best memories. I don't have many memories of my life being on a phone or being in a social media style environment. I just don't. Even to this day, my phone rings and I'll just look at it. a lot of times. Like if you're listening to this and you've called me and you're like, man, I know he should be home or he should be free. I just I just didn't have the time, or I just wasn't in that space to have a conversation. That's being 100. That's being 1000% with you. Don't mean I don't care about you. Don't mean that, like, you know, you're not important. I just don't matter in that moment. But I think that these kids don't have social skills. I believe that they don't have real problem solving skills. I believe there's so many things that these kids are lacking. Even some of the older ones, like these younger adults, you know, these 20-year-olds, 21-year-olds, I think it's the same thing. All they do is sit on the internet and watch music or watch a bunch of stuff that's not real. They don't know that these people that are making a lot of this music ain't real. They don't know that. They don't know that a lot of what they're hearing or what's being fed to them is being fed to them purposely based on the algorithm, not because that's what they need to hear. And then they make their decision on what their lifestyle is to be based on this. You know, you can go on the internet and watch a guy buy shoes all day. Well, they don't tell you that they were, you know, gifted a bunch of money from a parent. They don't tell you all this. So now this kid believes that he's going to go out here and figure out a way to just go make money. And then when he gets locked up for doing something he shouldn't be doing because he wants to live a lifestyle he sees on the internet, it's because he doesn't understand the real world. He doesn't understand that, hey, money don't grow on trees, bro. He don't understand that. He don't understand what that judge is going to do to him because all he wanted to do was buy shoes. But because he wanted to buy shoes so bad to keep up with a bunch of people that don't even know he exists, now he's got to go do some time, or he's got to, you know, do worse. You understand what I'm saying? So, I mean, I do believe that this Seattle school district has a point. I believe they have a point. I believe it's a valid point. I believe it's not the whole point, but I do believe that it is a point. And I do believe that if you're a parent and you happen to come across this, I think that, like, hey, like, I hate to be the guy to say it, but I do think we have control that we're not taking here. We have control over stuff. Like, we just can't continue to sue people. You will get people. I want to see guys smarter than me, not dumber than me. I don't want to see a bunch of guys that can't regulate emotion and, you know, doesn't understand responsibility because all they're used to looking for is a screen, or they look for validation from people through an app rather than validation from their peers that are in their area that they see every day, that they're going to live with or live around growing up, going forward, you know, and things like that. Like, you know, it's a hard thing seeing that lawsuit. I'm interested to see where it goes, and I'm definitely going to follow it because I think that's going to set the precedent. If they go into a courtroom and they have any type of victory, even if they lose the case, if there's any type of chink in the armor of these media companies, all hell's going to break loose. All hell's going to break loose. Every state in the country is going to find a way. They're going to find that loophole, and they're going to hit that same spot in that armor until it breaks. And once one person wins, it's going to be over with. The floodgates are going to open up, and it's going to be back to the Stone Age for everybody. And one way or another, they're going to have to figure it out either by choice or through necessity. These phones are going to have to get put down, and everybody's going to have to get back outside and mingle. So I don't know. But before I go, quick humble talk part of the day, man. Bet on myself. Bet on yourself. It's something that I've always lived by. It's something that I've always been told, even when I didn't have nothing, when I was down and out, when I was just out here trying to figure it out. People always told me, well, two people actually have told me that. Bet on yourself. And it's hard saying that because a lot of times when we're down and out and we're in bad situations, we tend to go for the immediate. We tend to go for the biggest amount of money. We tend to go for, you know, the biggest offer. You know, we tend to bypass the idea that these things might not be what we want to do, or they might be doing something that we can't do. But we risk that because in the moment we think that money is never going to come back again. We think that it's never going to last. And I've learned through betting on myself that it's all possible. Money will find you if you bet on yourself. If you create the environment, and through work ethic and through relationships, that if you create that environment through those two, that everything is going to line itself out, it will line itself out. It may not line itself out next week. It may not line itself out next month, but you will see that betting on yourself leaves you zero room for excuses and zero room for anybody around you who doesn't have accountability. It's very simple. It's very simple. Every job I've had hasn't been the job I wanted. I've worked at moving companies. I've worked at appliance companies. I've dollied 500-pound refrigerators. I've carried pianos upstairs, marble conference tables, you name it. You know, I'm a pretty strong guy, but I mean, you know, I would go to when I was in high school, I would go to school, get out of school at like 2:00 for work release. I'd go to work until 1 a.m, go home, take a nap, get up, go to school the next day. And I was making like $8 an hour. Listening to that now is wild. Like, it's wild. $8 an hour in high school, working from 2:30 in the afternoon to 1 in the morning, going home, getting up, and going back at it again. But you bet on yourself. You understand, like, you know what? Like, it might not be the job I want, but right now, somebody's taking a shot on me. So my only job is not that I need to do the best job, but it's for me to do the best job that I can do for myself. They don't have to think so, but I got to think so, because the next amount of money is going to come off the work that I'm doing, not the money that I'm doing. I hear people say, hey, well, I quit this job because they're not giving me hours. I've never been in an interview where a company has said to you, hey, how many hours did you work? I've never heard that. They say, hey, how long were you there? They want to know that you have time in. They want to know. That's what they want to know. I've never heard that, but I hear that a lot. Man, my hours were short. Well, okay. If your hours are short, then there's a way to handle it. But betting on yourself is not like, hey, yo, it got rough, so I quit. Everything's going to get rough. Everything gets rough. And if you bet on yourself long enough, you'll be able to quit with options. Because don't get it twisted. None of these jobs actually care about you. They care about you because you can do a job that they don't want to do. Because if they could do it, they would do it and not pay you, and that's more money for them. Food for thought. That's the job they don't want to do. So they're going to get you to, do whatever they don't want to do. And in return, they'll pay you some money. The reason why they won't do it is because the money that they're paying you, they wouldn't do it for. That's why they're paying you. So whenever you get the opportunity to get the hell away from them, you should do that. Whatever that is, you should be working your conversation in your brain as you're going into these things. If I'm betting on myself, should be, all right, this is the level that I'm getting to. This is the timeline in which I need to get there. Once I get to this plateau and I begin to plateau, I have to go figure out what the next challenge is. The only way to bet on yourself is to challenge yourself. If you're not challenging yourself, then how do you bet on yourself with no challenge? You have to put yourself in a position where you're going to become uncomfortable to see if you're up to the task. Anybody can say, hey, I'm betting on myself and I'm going to turn down this money to go take this job over here. But what you may be leaving may be the opportunity to become management. You may be leaving whatever, different opportunities to just go do this thing. Like I said, just because it's the money doesn't mean that it's what you want to do. The money will come. If I'm chasing money, I'm going to be chasing my tail forever because there's never going to be enough money. There's never going to be a thing that you won't want to buy. There's never going to be a thing that you won't have to pay for. There's never going to be a situation in which you have enough money. There's never going to be one. No matter how much money you get, how much money you got, I don't care where you live at. I don't care who you're related to. Guys that are rich still work. Why? Because the cost of living to upkeep the way they live costs money. Now, if you're going to go get $1 million and then you're going to go be homeless, then, hey, man, by all means, I think you'll be all right. But most people don't think that way. They don't think in those level of extremes. They think in a more modest realm, right? If my cost of living is this, then I should live this way. Okay, cool. Well, that means I have to continue to make money in order to support myself to live this way. It all works in unison. It's all one thing. It's not separate. And because it's not separate, you have to understand the only way for me to elevate myself is by me challenge me. You can't challenge anybody else for what they want and what their situation is. You have to challenge you. No job will ever challenge me to be better, because if I'm betting on myself, my expectations of myself are higher than the ones you have for me anyway. I just may not ever tell you. I know when I made a mistake, and I'll kick myself more than a job ever will, because I know I know I didn't hold myself to the proper standard when I do something wrong, or I got to check myself. So that ride home is going to be a rough one. But when I come back tomorrow, I'm in a better mood because I checked myself. So always bet on yourself, man. Always, 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 always bet on yourself. Always bet on yourself. You know, I live pretty modest. I don't have, a huge crib and all that, but my house is paid for. My house has been paid for, man, 3 years now. I'm 35, so 32. House paid for. It just appreciates in value. It's just money that I'm just sitting on at this point. And it's not because, oh, well, there's a trust fund or there was like this little thing. Like, no, like I went to work and I worked all nights for some years, and I missed birthdays and I missed Christmases and I missed all that to make sure that I was able to get to where I need to get to. And then once you hit that plateau and you get that thing, well, what's the next challenge? You push yourself to the next challenge, and then you challenge yourself some more, right? Success should never be looked at as a monetary amount. It should be looked at as the things that I was able to complete and the challenges and the roadblocks that I was able to get by to get there. That's how I look at it. I look at it and I go, man, like I went from being this to this, to this, to this, to this. And this is what it cost me. It cost me some people along the way. Some people passed away. Some people, some people that I had to let go along the way. It cost me some jobs, some relationships that I had to burn in order to get to this next level, because everybody don't want to see you win, because everybody don't want you betting on yourself. They want you to be right where they want you because they paying you. And when you understand that, and once you understand that your worth is your worth, and it's not for you to talk about, it's not for you to go and have a meeting with your boss about, it's for you and you alone to have that conversation, and for you to understand what you will and won't deal with, and what your level of accomplishment will be. Not can be, will be. And once you decide that level is where you're going to be, you're going to do everything that you can to get there. Everything you can. So everybody that's out here that's doing their thing, everybody that's out here that's pushing and shooting for the stars, hey, I'm proud of you. I commend you. Keep pushing. Trust me, I'm pushing too. I'm in a good space. I ain't rich, but I'm in a good space. But at the end of the day, because I bet on myself, there's always another thing. There's always something that I'm pushing towards. There's always a different obstacle that I'm trying to get past to get to the next level. Because where I'm from, we don't grow up with trust funds. We don't grow up with nothing but bills. We grow up with bad experience and bills, and we got to start all over. And somebody has to break that curse. Somebody has to do better. Somebody has to lead the way, and it's going to be me on my side, and hopefully it's you on your side. So bet on yourself. Keep pushing. Don't ever stop. Don't ever stop. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. So thank y'all for tuning in. Hey, hopefully everything in between now and this next episode goes well for you. Hopefully that job offer you're waiting for hits you up. Hopefully that raise you're waiting for, new year, comes through. Hopefully, everything around you is prosperous. Hopefully everything is safe. For you to check me out next week, man. Hey, comment box is open. Like, comment, subscribe. Holler at me. I'll holler back at you. But as always, Humble Talk Podcast. This is Feast signing out. Bye.